Rise, the podcast where we transform adversity into triumph and illuminate the extraordinary potential within all of us. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria. I'm a resilience coach, a ultra marathoner, and a firm believer in our next most powerful chapter. This podcast is a companion to my upcoming book, Resilience+Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash Your Marathon of Life Mindset, coming early 2025. In fact, April, May it should be out. Here we amplify stories of hope, perseverance, and success to inspire your journey. Today on Resilience+Rise, when we talk about resilience, we talk about the mindset, but also the power of a human body, the ability to heal. That's what we are opening up today. The transformative power of functional wellness. The guest whose journey is a testament of how the body can heal.
Hmm.
I'm so pleased to welcome Amanda Soukoulis. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and I can't wait to dive in.
Okay, so let's dive in. So, from what I have known about you, is that you were in the beautiful high pressure world of the Silicon Valley, working for Deloitte, and suddenly the life gave you a curveball, a personal health crisis. And as I've been given to understand, the conventional medicines could not solve. So, take us through the journey. What happened?
Yeah. So, yes, I was born in Silicon Valley, Bay Area in California. I graduated with a master's degree in finance and accounting and took my analytical mind to Deloitte. I worked in super high pressure environments for a handful of years and I honestly was able to do it with ease and in harmony. I didn't really experience any corporate burnout like what happens to a lot of people, but I always had in the back of my mind that I was meant for something more than just the corporate world. And I am also a dancer, so kind of very opposite things, a dancer and a CPA. Those two things aren't commonly combined, but that's what made me me. And I had just come off uh, I was a finalist for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and I was
Nice.
at the yeah, thank you. I was at the pinnacle of my health. I had been training, I had been fueling my body well. I looked like I was in just the best shape of my life, and I was mentally in such a great place preparing for the auditions. Being able to be a finalist was such an honor, such a joy. It was something that I had worked very hard for a handful of years while also maintaining that full-time career. After Deloitte, I'd gone to work in private equity. So I was working in private equity. I was a finalist for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. I got cut from the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. And 2 months later, my health literally plummeted almost overnight. And the first thing that I noticed was I wear a wearable device on my wrist. It's called a Whoop, if you're not familiar
Mhm.
with it. Yeah, so it's a biometric tracking, and it tracks your heart rate variability. So your heart rate variability measures how balanced and ready your nervous system is to take on the day. The higher, the better. There's no good or bad measure for heart rate variability, but for your relative self, the higher, the better. And all of a sudden, overnight, my HRV dropped by 30 points and then stayed low. And I was very aware and very intuitive, and I said, something's not right.
Mhm.
So I just kind of kept an eye on it and continued on as normal. A month later, all of a sudden, my energy just was drained out of me. It was like it just been punched and just like, okay, I guess I got to slow down a little bit. And
Just a moment, Amanda. So when you say HRV, that is the heart rate value, right?
heart rate variability, yeah.
Relativity. And so when it comes down, don't you feel the palpitation, or don't you feel okay? Energy does come down, but then don't you feel that like there is a lot of because I've spoken to people with the pressure issues, and when they talk about the heart rate, they can feel a sense. But for you mentioned that okay, it came down, but visibly you never felt anything different.
Yeah, visibly, I couldn't feel anything different because
Okay.
it's different than your resting heart rate. It's really a measure of your nervous system and how ready
Okay.
your nervous system is. And so my HRV plummeted. A month later, my energy plummeted. A month after that, my brain fog set in. And I felt like I was an 80-year-old person trapped inside a brain that could not think. I could not complete my tasks at work. I'd gone from very productive, very efficient to hardly being able to get out of bed. And it was kind of around this point that I started going to a bunch of different Western medicine doctors and was very just dismissed. Oh, everything looks fine. Your blood work comes back normal. And I was like, oh, there's got to be something. And so that's when I started doing more and more research. I started reading books on the gut microbiome because at that time, after my energy plummeted, after my brain fog set in, the next thing was that all of a sudden my gut was distended by 4 inches. And so, and on my frame, 4 inches is a lot, and it happened pretty quickly. And so I started just doing my own research, and that's when I found functional medicine. And that's when I learned that all of these symptoms were just warning signs on my body telling me like, hey, there's something going on. We need to dig deeper.
Hmm.
And so it was at this moment that I ran a bunch of tests. I partnered with a functional practitioner. I ran all these tests. We figured out that I had caught a really nasty bacterial pathogen in my gut. And I believe that I had actually caught it when I was in Europe a few months before that. But beyond that, there was like a cascading effect. So my hormones were all out of balance. Literally, my estrogen came back postmenopausal. It was so low. My thyroid was a little bit sluggish. I had adrenal fatigue. You know, the list just goes on and on. And so it was at this point that it was at my lowest point. I remember my body was breaking out in hives because it was trying to fight this bacterial pathogen off. And it was just so demoralizing because I had gone from the pinnacle of my health to hardly being able to get out of bed. I remember on Christmas Day, I didn't even get to go spend the day with my family because I was so sick. I laid in bed the whole day. I had a fever. My body was just fighting it off. And if I hadn't advocated for myself, if I hadn't dug deeper to, find the answer, then who knows how long it would have taken to figure out what was going on.
Okay. When was this, if you don't mind me asking? How
Yeah,
many years back?
it was 2 years back.
So, wasn't it that you felt maybe some after effects of COVID or some areas in that? Because it's around the world that there are so many different things happening. And of course, for you to come to a point wherein it could be the gut. So, what was your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with COVID, to be
Okay.
honest with you. Yeah, the I didn't test for anything at the time for COVID, but I wasn't experiencing any of the common symptoms that had to do with COVID. And
Okay.
once my test results came back positive for the bacterial pathogen that I had caught, it was very clear what was going on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. But the body is so interconnected. So I don't think that there was anything personally for myself with that, but there was a lot of other different symptoms and effects. And, if I hadn't have gotten sick like that, the ability for me to be resilient enough to move through that. But then from that, that's what then created this whole next chapter for me. And this is what led me to open up my own functional medicine nutrition practice, because I just remember feeling like I don't want any other woman to struggle the way that I'm struggling right now. And so I totally made a complete 180, and I'm so grateful that now my ability to rise and to be able to help transform other people's health.
Okay. So, question number one: what is functional medicine?
Yeah. So
I mean, for me, again, if I look around, I can get some answers, but from a walking, talking
Yeah,
encyclopedia. What
great question. The simplest way for me to explain it to you is that it is looking at the interconnectedness of the human body, and we're looking at the body as a whole. So when I meet someone and they come to me with a bunch of different symptoms, instead of just looking at, oh, you have high blood sugar, we're going to give you a medication to mask that symptom. I'm looking at, okay, what does your diet look like? What do the toxins in your life look like? What does the environment look like? How is your sleep? How is your exercise? So many different things that's looking at the whole body. And so really the way to summarize it is functional medicine looks at the interconnectedness of the human body and then gets to what is actually the root cause of the symptoms that you may be experiencing.
okay, and not taking any trade secrets from you, but what's the way we all look at the symptoms? But how? What are the procedures, or what are the ways that you work for the betterment of the holistic system?
Yeah, so I don't believe in guessing. I believe in testing to see what's actually going on. So with my clients, depending on their needs, we do a gut test. We'll look at the different food sensitivities they may be experiencing. We're going to look at toxins, heavy metals, mold, environmental toxins. We're going to look at your hormones, your thyroid, your cardiovascular markers. We're looking at so much going on within the body. And then from there, we're really able to tailor a systematic way to help someone heal.
So, when we talk about a functional medicine, and there, I mean, from the words that you just mentioned, is that uh, you work towards healing of fatigue, brain fog, gut issues, hormonal imbalances, and you give a personalized work through this entire element. What has been a common factor when, I don't know, can I call them as patients, or when these clients, that would be, that's
Clients, yeah.
clients come to you? Uh, of course, you mentioned it's a lot about testing, but have you noticed anything which is a common factor which has been happening around? But oh, I know you're based in California, and it's quite possible you may be having clients from the other parts of the world also. But is there something that you feel that if people made more use of? I mean, for me, I'm a runner. Go out to the nature. There's nothing that a run cannot solve. So, or fresh air, sun. Is there something that you have? It has come to your mind that maybe if people are more proactive in doing these things, it would be better for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of different, foundational pieces to lifestyle elements. What you talked about, sunshine. I just got off of a client call and she had really been struggling in the first month because her body was experiencing a big detox. I do
Mhm.
a whole flush in the first month to just help
Oh, okay.
open up the detoxification pathways. And she had shared a few of the things she was struggling with.
Hmm.
And I said to her, how many steps are you getting in every day? And she
Okay.
looked, and sure enough, it was probably around 3,000 a day. And I said, okay, for the next week, I'm going to encourage you and beyond, but really these next 7 days, I want you to get outside, get sunshine for at least 20 minutes and go for a walk. And I just got off of a call with her today and she said, oh my goodness, that walk has been life-changing for me. So sometimes it's little things like that. Are you moving your body? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting in enough protein? Those are all the foundational basic elements.
Hmm.
But from a functional perspective, when people come in, we do the testing. For me, it really boils down to three main things that I see. The first is toxins. So toxins are everywhere, whether that's environmental toxins, heavy metals, mycotoxins, which is mold. A lot of people have mold and don't even know about it. From the food, from the coffee, from even the apartment that they're in or house. So that's one piece of it. And what happens is over time, we get these toxins that build up. And if we're not properly flushing them out of our body, they just create a negative feedback loop in our body, and they just keep going around and around. We cannot properly get them out. And so that causes a lot of these symptoms that people are experiencing. So toxins is one. The second one I would say is micronutrient deficiencies. So our soil is just farmed a lot different than it was a long time ago. And so what happens is we're missing a lot of those micronutrient deficiencies. There's so many people that come in and their vitamin D levels are a 20, a 30, a 40. And on a conventional range, vitamin D at a 40 or a 50 is in the green. But from a functional lens, I want to see it at least at a 60. And so what happens is, we make one small tweak, we start getting more sunshine, but we also supplement with a vitamin D supplement, and all of a sudden their body starts feeling so much better. So there's a lot of different micronutrient deficiencies that happen, as well as macronutrient deficiencies, as far as, are we getting enough protein? Are we getting enough fats, the right fats? Are we getting carbs in our day? And so that would be the second piece. And then the third piece is the gut. I mean, all things really begin and end in the gut. I think Hippocrates said that way long ago. And the gut-brain connection is so strong. 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So when people come to me with anxiety or depression or brain fog, which brain fog was my worst symptom of all when I got sick, and sure enough, it was my gut that was experiencing all the problems. And so most people don't realize this, but the gut is really in control of so much.
Hmm. You mentioned holistic, so there comes into the matter of mind also. How important is the mind? Because in today's world, and specifically, in fact, I'll come to the next question to that, is that in today's world where people do feel the burnout, and when it's become a buzzword, it's become like, if anything happens, oh, I'm burnt out. So having a mind that is kind of stable, not stable is not the right word, but having a core in the mind, a grounding, that would be the best word, and your body. So how do you incorporate the mental aspect or the emotional aspect to this healing?
Yeah, the mind is so powerful, so powerful. And if you tell yourself you're not going to heal, no matter what you do physically, you're not going to heal.
True.
And so a big piece of the work that I do with my clients is actually mindset work. And
Okay.
so we're going to look at, what are the limiting beliefs that you have around food, around healing. We're going to look at that and we're going to unlearn those things and we're going to relearn new things. And, anytime you are working on building new habits, it's so crucial to anchor that into your why, to your purpose. And so I attach core values very closely with mindset. I know what my core values are. And so knowing what matters most to me, it helps me mentally when I am walking through something tough, and being able to, be resilient enough to move through the hard, to persevere through the things that you don't want to do. Waking up early when you don't want to wake up, but knowing that you need to do it, because if you have that consistency for yourself, you're really unstoppable.
Wow. So here, when I'm in this podcast, one of the elements that I always say is that from our deepest of pain
Mm,
comes the best of our purposes. It's when you take a step back and you realize life is happening for me, not to me. That's when, thanks to Anthony Robin, that phrase has become such a buzzword in my talks. But when you look at that, here you're helping people. But if I take the image of Amanda 2 years back when you were struggling, you were a high flyer corporate. The world was your oyster in its own way. And then it hit you where it hurts the most. Of course, the gut. It hurts.
I got punched.
Yes. Okay. And out of our deepest or the darkest of recesses of mind comes the brightest of lights. So now, when you look at your journey from then until now, tell me about your transformation.
Mm, yeah. It all changed for me when I flipped why me to it had to be me, knowing that I was uniquely positioned to be able to help others break free from this cycle of health challenges. For me, right, I lost my health overnight, and it was such a dark time, and it's not I honestly never felt any bit of anxiety or depression, and that's only by the grace of God. But I just knew that I was meant for something more. And I just kept saying, like, God, I don't know. I don't know what you have for me. I don't know why these gut issues are coming back. And it's probably helpful to know that I'd struggled with gut issues since I was 16 years old. The very first time a doctor ever put a camera down my throat to look at my gut, I was literally in high school. And so it'd been over 10 years of this struggle, but I had pretty much masked it for 10 years. And then all of a sudden it was just ripped out from under me. And so when I was at my lowest, yes, I was asking questions, but it was more from a sense of, I know this pain is going to turn into purpose, and I know this purpose is going to turn into my power, and not my own personal power, but the power in and through me. And so that's what I clung to in those darkest days. And I've been through tough things. I've been through a lot of rejection. I've been a finalist for 4 different professional cheerleading teams. Right up at the very end, I've been cut. And so I'm no stranger to being down like that. But I know that one failure just leads to the next success. And I don't really look at it as a failure, because it's either you win or you learn something and you keep moving. And so I knew that when I was at my lowest, it would get better as long as I was able to mentally walk every single day in the fire. And it was not easy. It was not easy by any means. It felt like a year-long winter. Someone,
Mm.
right when I was getting sick, I was dancing and I was practicing still, like probably I decided to take a break from dance right after Christmas, right after that very low point. I said, okay, I can't do it anymore. I was in the middle of an intensive and had to leave, and literally my whole body broke out in hives. I was throwing up, and then I went back in and danced. And it was after that day that I said, okay, it's time to take a break, Amanda. And that's just like the mindset that I have. Like I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And finally I said, Amanda, no, the hard thing to do right now is to rest. And that's what you need to do. And I remember when I was walking through that season, I had been talking to a friend that I danced with, and she said, go buy this book. And it was called Something About Winter. And it was pretty much about, sometimes you have seasons in life that may not
Mhm.
be physical winter, but for you it's winter. And that's how a year felt for me. It was like a year and a half long of winter. And I'm so grateful for that winter, because now I get to be 10 times as excited about life. I'm so much more energetic, and not that I wasn't energetic before, because I did have that energy, but it's a different perspective that I have, and I'm just so grateful for it.
Hmm. And now, have you gone back to dancing, or that's now you're still a dancer, back to dancing?
Yes, I'm back to dancing. Yeah, it's a passion of mine. It's someone someone said to me, Amanda, dancing is your soul battery, and that's how
Hmm.
it feels. It is my soul battery. It brings me a lot of joy. It gives me a really great community of women. Honestly, the adult dance community out here in Dallas, Texas is incredible. There's just so many incredible women that are just so supportive, and it's my outlet. And yeah, I'm so grateful to be back. It was so difficult to take a year off, but it makes it that much sweeter now that I'm back.
Actually, the question would be exactly on that point, Amanda. Is that so? When it was like a year out, I remember the times wherein I was, because of my injuries in running, I had been told to sit at the side. And when I look, I say that uh, there is a failure of failure, but depending on how you're looking at that failure to be. I know, I mean, as a runner, that was my soul calling. That has been my backbone, and I can see the same kind of energy within you also for dancing. So when that was snatched away from you, how did you convince yourself that it's okay? I will do it. I will get back. What were the elements that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, I pushed my body until my body said no more.
Of course.
And my body told me to rest, and it was really difficult, but I just knew that in order to be able to get back and better, that I would have to actually give it the rest. And so I pulled back from a lot in that season, and I don't think that there was nothing that like really filled that dance. I don't want to say void because it's not like I had a void in my heart, but there's nothing that filled that. But I found different things to do. That's when I was kind of jumping into the world of functional medicine, right? So I just kind of transferred my energy into different things. And I knew that when my body was ready for it, when my body was strong enough for it, that I'd be able to get back. And it was very humbling when I came back, taking a year off, and then getting back into it. I felt like I had two left feet for about a month. And it's taken a few months, to be honest with you, to get back to starting to feel like myself. But consistency compounds. So when you just show up every day, even when it doesn't feel like any change is happening, the iceberg just hasn't hit the top of the surface.
Fantastic. I can totally understand when you say about it's something that you have identified yourself, and when that's taken away from you, how do you identify yourself? And that's when we realize we are not just that identification, we are more than that. And that's how we started this entire conversation. Um, so, are you currently working on some new projects or something that is firing up your passion apart from dancing?
Yeah,
Or even
dance.
if dancing is there any show that is coming up that if the listeners are somewhere around, if they are in Dallas or somewhere around, they can come and have a peep on what your show is about? Or is there something else that's in the pipeline?
Yeah, yeah. So right now I'm really just focused mostly on serving my one-on-one clients. So I love what I do. I have a very simple three-step process with my functional medicine practice. It is uncover, uproot, unleash. And so what we do is we are going to do comprehensive lab testing to really figure out what's going on. And then we're able to kind of uproot all those chronic stressors and those imbalances. And really where my heart is, what I care about the most is being able to help you unleash what an optimal life looks like for you. And so when you don't have your health, nothing else really matters. And that's what I learned when I got sick. Nothing else mattered because all I could focus on was myself and getting better. And I feel like there's a scripture that says like the thief came to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come to give life to the full. And I believe that we're really meant to live a full, abundant life. And when we are full of dis-ease in our body, all
This
right,
is
it's not just disease, it's dis-ease in our
ease, yeah.
body, then we can't do that. We're going to be distracted. We're not going to have focus. We're not going to have energy. But when we have our health, we can go do all the things. I mean, one of my clients, we've worked together for about six to 8 months now. And on our last call, she was saying, Amanda, I am finally starting to do my old hobbies again. I said, well, how long has it been since you picked out your sewing machine? Oh, it's been years, Amanda. And on top of that, she was telling me about a client that she just landed for herself. She stepped out, became an entrepreneur, and she said, a year ago, I would not have had the energy to get that client. And so that is why I do what I do, is because I want to help other women unleash, and men, but I work mostly with women, unleash what an optimal life looks like for them. And the only way to do that is to know that you have your health.
Oh, that's a wonderful piece. Because again, when you mentioned about the scriptures, yes, in today's world, yeah, people our community base, and that's when you realize the power of you going on. You mentioned the purpose was something more than yourself. But same thing about the scriptures is that love your neighbor as yourself. People have forgotten about loving their own self, taking
Mm.
taking care. I was mentioning to one of the podcasters that you have got one body. You better take care of it. There's nowhere else that you can go and live. So it is your choice.
Yeah, yeah. You can't pour from an empty cup. So
So true. So true. So just be mindful of the time. Is there any suggestions that you would ask, because now that you've been having so many different clients, and again generalization is a very challenging or it's an incorrect way, but are there any thoughts that you would suggest to the people about, okay, being kind to yourself, taking care of your body, etc., but that something that comes to your mind, like a wise sage that you would like to impart a little knowledge to the listeners?
think if you don't have your health, you don't have anything and nothing
Yeah,
else matters. I think that's what it is at the end of the day. And, you can't really make generalizations around health. There are those foundational pieces, and I can talk about that forever, but you only have one home. And so the first step is having the awareness of how you need to treat that home. And then the second step is, if you don't know how to do it yourself, partner up with someone that can help you time collapse, and so that you don't make all the same errors and mistakes that I did. And so for all of the listeners that are listening to this, I'd love to just offer a free consultation if you do have specific questions around your health. If you message me on Instagram, which we'll put in the show notes, the word rise, because resilience plus rise. If you message me the word rise, then I'll be able to send you more information for that. But I just believe so powerfully in what Thomas is doing with resilience plus rise. And the mindset is such a impactful, important piece, and the body and the mind just go together so well. So
beautiful. Amanda, so guys, I will be putting out Amanda's contacts in the comments below. If this podcast or this conversation has resonated with you, do reach out to her. And she has gone through the process. She knows what the challenges are. It may be that you're having going through the same, maybe or maybe not, but at least she knows maybe where to direct you to. So what we just heard was amazingly the power of functional medicine, looking through the root causes of your gut health challenges, and it was not just surface level. She spoke about how she reclaimed her health, how she was healed from, the favorite one was brain fog, fatigue, gut issues, the imbalances, hormonal imbalances, and the importance of mind body integration. Here, what I've seen is that, especially when I'm talking to Amanda, I can see that she has turned back and said how to reclaim your vitality, how to unleash your full potential. And what I'm seeing over here, yes, she's gone back to dancing, living a life of vibrant and energized success. So, Amanda, with this, I would conclude today's session. I will just stop the recording. Thank you so very much for your space and time.
thank you.